So out of curiosity, like what made you want to like talk about AI or artificial intelligence this week?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is because there's been this thing going around about that people are talking about how AI is taking over and how it's going to, cause people to lose their jobs and this and that. But obviously, talking about it, in kind of a case of setting that record straight, people aren't going to lose their jobs. But if you don't adapt to it, then you're going to get left behind. Like all the people who are in business who are using AI to assist them in their business are miles ahead of the people who can't even grasp the concept. So it's more of like a kind of like an educational thing, but also too just to kind of dive into like the background of it, and just so people can kind of understand like where it came from and then where our trajectory could be headed in the future. But I mean, it's just a concept that I know a lot of people in business are just now it's becoming more abundant and more businesses are starting to adapt to it. So
No, I think you're spot on because you said something right exactly what you said, but it's not that AI is going to replace a lot of people, but the people that do use AI alongside their normal day-to-day routines or their, professional endeavors, those people will replace those that do not. So I think there's something very valid there that it's almost like a necessary evil. Even if you're not a fan of it, you can tell it's coming. That wave
yep.
is here. It's only going to strengthen. It is crazy to think that like what, so it's like what, we're like middle to late February in 2024 and ChatGPT, at least the GPT-3, that went live. I mean, I can fact check myself and Google it, but I think it was like November of 22, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
So
November 22.
yeah, we're only a year and a half-ish, a little over a year basically,
Yeah.
just that being available. And we've seen so much rapid advancement because now they're on GPT-4. You have, their image generation, Dolly, has skyrocketed. It's now integrated into ChatGPT. You have other image generation like Midjourney. That's bananas, honestly. And then I don't know if you've seen it, but they have their new text to video platform coming out, Sora. It's not publicly available, of course, yet, but they've shown the demo videos of how you can just type in a sentence or a short paragraph, and basically OpenAI will be able to generate almost like hyper realistic videos.
Yep.
And it's crazy. Like if you're listening to this right now, oh, I didn't tell you, but we're recording already.
I
So
figured as much whenever we were talking, and I figured as much. So I mean, but I mean, there's no better chance. But yeah, go on.
oh yeah. So like if you're listening to this, look up Sora. It's Sora, and it's a new product that OpenAI. I believe they announced it like literally earlier this week. It's a couple days ago, and it's just astonishing how realistic the videos that it can generate based on just a minute amount of information. Like it's crazy to think about because my initial thoughts when you look at it is, okay, this is going to replace the vast majority of what you think of as Hollywood or like the entertainment industry. Now, I don't think that's entirely true. That's probably hyperbole, but like just for the ability for someone to type in some descriptive language and eventually produce a full-length movie. Like we're not that far away from seeing the first fully AI generated motion picture that could theoretically be eligible for an Oscar for best film. And it could be created by one guy or girl that just types in paragraphs worth of information, does a little tweaking, maybe some After Effects, Adobe Magic there, but gone are the days of needing a multi-million-dollar film crew, months of filming, a year of editing and producing. Like,
Do you think it'll actually like come? Because you have to think about it. I mean, and we'll kind of touch on like a couple different topics based off of this probably in the future. But like, as far as actors and as far as big name people in entertainment today, what if like if that happens? I mean, there's not gonna be a need for actors anymore. Now, I'm not one to obviously get into this conversation because, in my opinion, I feel like people worship, if that's the right term, too many actors and famous people out there when it's like half, and I'm not saying all of them are bad. There are some that are, very down to earth. They do tons of things, but there's so many people out there that just worship all these people that, they don't even know who we are at the end of the day. They've never met us before. They don't know who we are, but it's like, would it really be a bad thing if it was just one person that just wrote, and like typed into some AI and then it generated an entire movie, and then that's what our movies are in the next 20 years, so to speak? Like, would that really be a bad thing? You know? But just the scope of just what AI has done so far. And the thing is, I mean, AI, this isn't new. People are like, oh my God, this AI stuff is amazing. Like, it's not new. It just hasn't been this prevalent ever. But it's been around since the 50s, since the early 50s is when the first instance of AI came up, and it was actually at a conference that was, let me see here, it was at Dartmouth Summer Research project on artificial intelligence, and it was just a group of guys that just got together. They just met up, but it was 100 researchers and scholars, and they essentially just talked about accomplishments. So this has been going on before, probably like in the early 40s, mid 40s to like early 50s is when AI officially started. And so people think like it's this amazing thing, but they've been working on this for, half of a century, trying to perfect this, trying to get it to where it's at, and it's still not perfected, today. They're still working things out into it.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that's interesting is like if you have a conversation with somebody today about artificial intelligence, kind of like how I led off with talking about OpenAI, I think it's much more prevalent because we see the creative aspects of it. And so we were able to see like, text generation, video, image, audio, there's like music generation out there too. But there's other ways that artificial intelligence has been used our entire life, and we never really thought of it that way. Easy example is a search algorithm, or the way that information could be fed to you, whether it be on the recommended list on your Netflix or Hulu account, or how you interact with YouTube or Google, things like that. Anytime there's ones and zeros involved, there's going to be some form of a quote unquote artificial intelligence there. I think it's just how we interact with it today is vastly different than how we used to, where you had the machine working behind the scenes, whereas now you get to interact with that machine directly to have your own input and a various amount of outputs that you get to dictate, how that output is generated. Whereas before, things were more just kind of fed to you based on, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but basically, you would have a computer programmer or an engineer behind the scenes that would have already written up the code to provide you whatever that output's supposed to be.
Yeah. And that kind of also too, like, feeds into like, obviously what you said about Google and YouTube and all your streaming services, that they pick up on the algorithm of what you're doing, so it's like when you're doing social media, Instagram, like, and you see like all these same people that have like all these views on their videos and stuff like that, like they're putting that, like, there's so much that they're doing with just that one video that it's going into the algorithm. So that's AI taking over, doing its thing, and just that's the algorithm that they use. And so it's not even just that though, but have you ever gotten on, just any kind of website that you've ever gotten on, and you see a message pop up at the bottom that asks you if you want to accept cookies? No, you're not going to get delivery in the mail for freshly baked cookies, but you're actually giving them the permission to send you ads and to send you stuff based on that, because countless times, obviously there's been some times where I'll do that. Like if I'm on like, a tool website or whatever the case may be, and I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And the next thing you know, I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see something from Harbor Freight that pops up, and I'm like, I was just on Harbor. Like it integrates in ways that I think people are just now starting to realize that. But it's like you said, because we didn't have the ability to firsthand like access a computer and just say, you get on ChatGPT and you ask it a question, and it pops out the answers. Now, I will say, ChatGPT though, it does have its restrictions, and I know this because I've asked this question before, but it actually cannot lie. They actually put something into the system that makes it to where ChatGPT cannot tell you a lie. So if you ask it to tell you something that's a lie or whatever the case may be, it'll actually show you messages back that are like, I'm sorry, like I can't tell you a lie, or I can't do this, or I can't, like, it'll actually tell you what it can and can't do. So there's still plenty of the scope of it. There's still plenty of things you could still have it do, but there are things out there that people are still scraping the surface of telling what it can't do. So
Yeah, no, what's interesting is, so like when it comes to that, saying that, ChatGPT can't lie, I would maybe argue that it could lie. But what I mean by that is, from ChatGPT's perspective, it doesn't know what the truth or a lie is, because what it's doing is it has an aggregated data set that, because it scrapes virtually the entire internet, at least the aspects of the internet that are open and publicly available. So it's not the entire internet, it's a good chunk of it though. And how, if you have enough incorrect information out there, that information then may be aggregated to be deemed as correct. An example would be, like, do you remember back in high school or maybe middle school when Wikipedia really first came online and became prominent? You had a lot of teachers and professors saying, oh, don't use Wikipedia because, it can be updated by anybody, anywhere. And it's still a good source, but, there are moments you probably come across something on Wikipedia that is factually incorrect. But if that's being used as one of the sources and the data is scraped from there, the system doesn't know any wiser than to trust that, especially if you have an upteenth amount of complementary sources are all saying the same thing. Because we even have, there's scenarios in academia and science at large where you have a cohort of academics, scientists, etc., that all come to the same consensus on something, and so it gets deemed as factually true, but then time goes by and then they find out that something else is actually true. So does that mean what they said previously was a lie? Because you could find the same scenario with a database that, a ChatGPT or any other, LLM is using to source, what they're trying to tell you.
well, see, that's actually a good point then, because, and not to get too political about it, but let's bring up fact checkers. As the past 3 to 4 years, they've become more and more prominent, where it's like, if you say, and we could go to like an educational side of this too, but if where you talk about something that happened in history, and now anytime that something is brought up, and I've seen it less and less for some reason as of late. I don't know if it's just because I haven't, paid that much attention, but on Facebook, like if you were to comment on something or make a statement on something, someone could actually go in there and click a button and they would fact check you, and it would say like, well, this article actually said this. But realistically, if you know what you're saying to be true, then, and everyone knows it is true. It's just because someone had a difference in opinion than you, they want to say that this other thing is true. But realistically, if you do your research, then you'll find what the actual truth is. And so, kind of even going into a historical sense, I don't know if you've heard about this lately, but some schools, I don't know if all schools, but I think some schools are trying to essentially redo history classes, essentially. So they're trying to cut out certain aspects of history that they're not allowed to teach anymore to students. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me, because I mean, I get that, as you get older, I mean, you're going to have to obviously add to the history books. You're going to have to add stuff that happened in our timeline that obviously at some point is going to be history to the kids that are in school now, that's obviously we went through, that they're gonna be like, what is COVID? That, who knows, that's probably going to be in a history book at some point, but I still don't think you should necessarily rewrite history, or even the history courses, but you should just condense that down, because in a way that's fact checking what's going on. Now, again, I don't know the whole premise about that, but when it comes to AI, you could, with the fact that you have AI at your fingertips, you could go essentially research it just like that and find out exactly what it is if you wanted to. Google's never going to go away, but I just think ChatGPT will be a whole nother source that people can utilize for that purpose. Like history could be, gone but never forgotten. I mean, that's the whole point of history. You can't forget what happened, and you can't, make it to where, it never existed.
That's true. There could be an argument that you could strategically have moments of history be forgotten. But that's a whole other like rabbit hole there. But the one thing that is interesting when you're talking about how Google won't go away, I think Google's very much aware that the future of search is going to be similar to how at least currently we're interacting with like a ChatGPT type interface, because you can see it within their own system today, because they have, it used to be called Google Bard, now it's called Gemini. Same thing basically. It's their version of a language learning model, or I'm sure they have their own terminology for it internally, but that's already being natively rolled out. If you have like a Google Pixel phone or an Android, they're starting to have Gemini be the actual like assistant within your phone. And then I don't know if you notice this firsthand, but whenever you go to search something on Google, it'll actually like start to tell you the answer, so you don't have to click into a website. I don't know if I don't remember if I had to opt into that or not, but that's basically the future, because a lot of people are kind of worried, saying, okay, well, what does that mean for, companies that, their monetization method requires you to view their website because they want you to see the ads on the website. So what does that mean if you just Google something and it just tells you the answer on the first page of Google, and you don't actually have to click into the article, the blog post, etc.?
Yeah.
Because you could definitely already do that today. You could go ask Google a question and it'll tell you the answer, and you won't even have to visit a website.
Yeah. And I've noticed that too, because like, if I'm whatever kind of question I might be asking it, and like you'll have a couple websites, then you'll have like, your Reddits and all those kinds of people who on there who give their answers, but then you'll have like the little drop down arrows that will actually give you answers from various websites. So you can get 5 different answers from 5 different websites without even actually visiting a website, unless you actually click the link to go to said website.
Yeah.
It really just depends on how you want to do that. Now, ChatGPT though, I use it for my work, but and it actually does help in a lot of cases. And I know that ever since it came out, it became more abundant. I know schools have cracked down on students because of it, because I mean, you could write a paper just like that. Like, there's so much stuff that you can do with it. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that students use it, but I don't think they should rely on it. And I say that because when you look at AI as it is now, it's not going to replace people, but it's going to do majority of the work for people in terms of like, whatever their job might be. I mean, you said earlier, like you use AI for your job. Now, granted, you work from home, you work a specific type of job that, requires you in some cases to probably use it. But students every day that are just in school shouldn't have to just rely on that when they're in school. They have access to their books, they have access to their stuff. I'm not saying don't use it in certain cases, but as time progresses and we get to that threshold, we've already had the younger generations that missed like a year and a half of actual schooling, 2 years of actual school, where they were sitting at home learning off of a computer and doing their, getting all their education that way. Do you think necessarily that the evolvement and advancements for AI is going to solely the actual intelligence of the human race?
I think if anything, it'll enhance it. And what I mean by that is like, yeah, you're gonna have portions of the population that, historically you would have someone who may thrive because they're able to read or hear information and then retain that information, right? So there was a point in time where that was valued. It still is valued for sure. I think the argument with using AI as like a supplemental part of your education is similar to how you would probably interact with YouTube today. If you had an issue with your car's engine or maybe the HVAC unit of your home, you might be inclined to go to YouTube or a video service, probably YouTube, and search in how to fix it, a tutorial, something like that. You're not going to memorize that information. Some of it may stick with you if it's, how to change an air filter or something like that, you might memorize that. But you're going to lean on that service to be able to tell you that. So you could do a similar thing where let's just go back to the high school example or college even. If you're having to write a paper, do a presentation on something, you could, interact with ChatGPT or, Google's equivalent to help you find the best sources, because those services can also cite the sources, and then that can send you down those rabbit holes, or it can help you analyze and better understand. It can almost be like a tutor sitting next to you. Now, on the flip side, you're definitely going to have people that will overly rely on it to where if that system is no longer there, are you able to survive and advance on your own without that? Because you want to have it be like a tutor or like a helper, or, like, you want it to be a tool. You don't want to have to overly rely on it.
And that's where, and so that actually kind of like sets me into like the next part of this is when it comes to certain career fields, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're a, historian, or you go to school for, art, or now I will say art, in a way, I feel like using AI generated like photos and things like that. I feel like if you're doing photography, I feel like that's a little bit of cheating, because I mean, you're just utilizing AI like you would want to utilize your actual skill set, But let's talk about the careers that are more, I don't want to say hands-on, but they are, but your medical field, your law school students, your engineers, your what about those fields of people who, like, they are very smart people, otherwise they wouldn't be going to school for things like that. But or do you think we're going to get to a point where, like, you would hope that they're utilizing it as a tool and not just so that they can like get through their schooling? Because like I know in hospitals they're utilizing more AI technology now, like it's becoming a more thing. And that doesn't bother me at all, because especially for the people who have been there, who have been established in that, what worries me is the people who are still going through school, learning how to become a surgeon or learning how to become a doctor, who seem to rely on it a little bit more than what they should be in that case. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but that would make me nervous going in for potential surgery, and, knowing that my doctor, who's obviously, 25 years old, or my surgeon, and they used AI for most of their school, to help with most of their school. And that would make me a little bit nervous. I know you always have to have your hands-on part, you have to have your residency and stuff like that, but that kind of stuff is what I feel is what bothers me the most about how AI is just evolving. And I know there are people out there who don't utilize it like that, but just with the younger generations coming up now, in the next 20 years.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear you on that. Because AI definitely is already used in most of those fields today. I know you kind of already, you alluded to it, but like in healthcare, AI is already being used to help with diagnosis, or to help identify underlying causes to things. It's really more helping to, based on the inputs you give it, such as like symptoms, being able to spit out, the best probable diagnosis, or, next steps, things like that. There's a good point about if someone overly relies on it, throughout their time in med school. But I would hope that, they would be weeded out over time, because then you also have the problem of academia. Some aspects of academia, or some of those academic institutions, are adapting. However, the vast majority, in my opinion, they're not adapting fast enough. But also, it's because this stuff is changing so quickly. I mean, we were talking in the beginning how, GPT-3 only came online a little over a year ago, and we're already over here with GPT-4 and all these other competitors out there that are just, light years ahead in development than anyone would have guessed 5 years ago. And the law side of it is funny. I don't know if you've seen these before, but I forget the name of the one I first learned about, but there are websites that you can basically, it'll be your virtual lawyer for you to help you get out of like parking tickets and just like small claims court type things. So you can basically use it, pay a fee, and it'll basically be your lawyer virtually for you. But it's just like basically OpenAI on the back end being that lawyer for you. But yeah, I think the other thing that'll be interesting too is how, I think you said engineering, or like engineers being kind of that other field. And you have to wonder, how is artificial intelligence plus, or being integrated into like the Apple Vision Pro, or other headsets like it, where it has an augmented reality around you.
Yeah.
Think about if you're like a welder, you're working a very high, I don't even know the right descriptor for it, a high stress, high detail,
Altitude.
high altitude, something very detail oriented, where maybe you have like an array of things in front of you and you have to identify which ones you need to do something to versus ones you don't.
Yeah.
Having an AI co-pilot built into an automated or augmented reality headset,
Yeah.
we're not that far away from that. We're
Yeah.
we're probably within a year of that, which is kind of
Yeah.
wild.
And I think it's like it's funny though because you kind of discreetly touched on it as well, or just kind of maybe think about this, but it's like it could be used in certain cases, especially for like engineers, construction, perhaps. Like I mean, I know a lot of construction nowadays. I mean, if you could build it, they'll hire you, kind of thing. It's not really like there's not really like a, as far as I know, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not like a lot of like barriers that you have to pass through to be like, okay, cool, now you're a construction worker. But let's just say that, architects, people who build skyscrapers, just like the larger scale people who work in construction. If you're going into like engineering or pipe welding, even like, trade skills, you know, you obviously give them the hands-on experience though, but also while they're taking a test, like you could actually have the AI augmented going into it. So it's like you could grade them based off of that. So it's not like they're, wasting the materials, wasting all that. So it's like you're using technology to grade them, test them to see how they perform, and then obviously doing the actual test to it as well. But it's funny how, like, in certain fields AI would seem to be more helpful, but in other fields it seems like it could do more harm than good. And that's kind of just my overall perspective. Like, I don't mind using it, but it's sometimes like I forget that it's there. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, oh, you've got to use this. It's the greatest thing ever. But I'm like, I'll use it if I need it, but I don't need it to be able to perform my job or perform the duties of my job. Like I utilize it as a tool, and I just don't want it to get to that point where people are just there. It goes from being a tool, because movies, and I get that they're movies, but movies have shown us otherwise, in the past of, different, variations of what AI can do. And it's like, I don't know the exact movies, but there's some like where they have like an automated police force, like you have robots that are just flying around that if they find you, like they expect you to, like they take you in kind of. So it's essentially kind of goes back to what I was saying about AI erasing certain jobs. I don't think it'll erase a whole lot of jobs, and just kind of like what we talked about earlier, but it will enhance. But I just don't think it would be beneficial for people to rely on what AI. Because if you do, then I don't know how that's going to actually shape what our country does, how, and even just the world as a whole.
I mean, you're not going to vote for like the AI president in 4 years.
I mean, let's be honest, we probably had an AI running our country this whole time. Because
It's been a bad model if that is.
it was the beta chatgpt. That's what it was.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Ex Machina?
I want to say yes. Because that was one of the movies I was thinking about, but like I could remember like the plot of what the movie was. But if I haven't, it's been for years since I've seen it.
No worries. For those listening, if you haven't seen the movie Ex Machina and artificial intelligence even remotely fascinates you or interests you, I recommend it. I'm trying to remember what year that movie came out. I want to say it was probably a little over a decade ago.
I want to say it was like early.
Oh, actually, it was about a decade ago. It was what, 2015, 2014?
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm not going to spoil the ending of the movie. Of course, you got to watch it. But do you know what the Turing test is? Where it's if a computing system or artificial intelligence is able to convince or trick a human into thinking that they're interacting with a human. I might be botching the formal definition of that, but the whole idea of if you're a human interacting with an AI, it doesn't even have to be just like a human-looking AI, just like the way you're communicating back and forth, and that computing system is able to convince you, or you're able to believe that you are interacting with another human intelligence rather than ones and zeros. That's what the Turing test is, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name that actually did it, because it's his last name, Alan Turing. That's what it was. Basically, Ex Machina is about a human that is selected to conduct a Turing test with one of the artificial intelligent robots that was created by a tech company at the time. It's a tech company that doesn't actually exist, but think about like a Google or a Facebook, a Meta, something like that. And then it gets interesting because emotions get involved and people may or may not get hurt in the process. Highly recommend it, though. It's kind of a very good baseline of, I think, where we're at in reality with artificial intelligence. So highly recommend it if you haven't seen it.
Do you think that AI could, and again, I'm kind of basing this off of like, so actually I would say it's a very prominent movie. It didn't really get a lot of good reception from it, but the movie I, Robot with Will Smith in it.
Yeah.
So premise of that movie, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm actually thoroughly surprised, but also too, if you're young enough and you haven't seen it, then I understand why. But AI has advanced so far that as to kind of what you see them doing now, not only with just, ChatGPT and these different services that you can utilize, but they're actually developing, robots, like they're developing like self-thinking robots that they don't think emotionally. They just think, I can't remember if it was subjectively or objectively. I can't remember which one, but they develop them to think in a certain way.
Yeah, I think it's objectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now there's been a couple of videos out there where people have done, like their tests, their research while they're building these robots to see how they react to certain situations. And when you look at it, just to kind of give an example, this guy was playing this game with this robot, this robot that they were developing. And I can't remember the premise of the game, but each time one of them lost, they would slap the other one in the head. And so every time when the guy lost, he would put something up in front of his head and the robot would actually slap that instead of actually slapping the person.
Yeah.
Well, just to show you how much AI can learn in a short time period, they were doing this for like 5 minutes maybe. The AI robot actually picked up on him doing that, and the next time he lost that game, they actually pulled down what they were slapping the whole time and actually slapped the guy in the head. Like they knew that they picked up on the fact that he was doing that. Now, kind of tying that all into where I'm going with this is, do you think AI, if we got to that point where robots would actually become a thing, do you think it could actually they would develop emotions? Do you think they would program them to not do that, or do you think that that's something that they would eventually learn how to do? We're thinking like 50 to 100 years in the future potentially, and this is if we stay on track with where everything's kind of going now.
I think we're already past that point. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you? I'm gonna have to Google this in real time. There was a journalist. I forget which news outlet he was with, but he got, was it the Bing version of ChatGPT to try to convince him to divorce his wife and to be with the AI. It took him a while to do it, but he was actually able to convince it to do that. And it was wild. Like there's instances where I'm not going to say it's sentient, but it gives hints and clues of that. One thing I was going to bring up that kind of ties into this, a gentleman named Jeffrey Hinton, who he's like deemed as like the godfather of AI. He quit Google in 2023. Let me fact check myself on that. In 2023, because he thinks that we're headed in a very dangerous direction with artificial intelligence, and that he, instead of being on the developing side of it, he wants to be on the side that's like warning humanity that we're going down a slippery slope that we're not able to backtrack on. Let me share my screen real quick and show you what we got going on here.
I'll let you finish, but you kind of got me thinking about something now.
Yeah, so you have like the godfather of AI. His name's Jeffrey Hinton. He's been working in artificial intelligence for 45 years. He's been working at Google part-time, kind of as like an advisor for the past number of years. Direct quote saying, "I thought it was 30 to 50 years or even longer away. Obviously, I no longer think that." Says for the past decade, Hinton worked part-time at Google between the company's Silicon Valley headquarters in Toronto, but he has quit the internet giant, and he told the New York Times that he'll be warning the world about the potential threat of AI, which he said is coming sooner than he previously thought. Hinton, who was named the 2018 Turing Award winner for conceptual and engineering breakthroughs, said he now has some regrets over his life's work, the Times reported. He cited the near-term risks of AI taking jobs and the proliferation of fake videos, photos, and texts that appear real to the average person. In a statement to CNBC, Hinton said, quote, "I now think the digital intelligences we are creating are very different from biological intelligences." Hinton referenced the power of GPT-4, the most advanced large language model, or LLM, from the startup OpenAI, whose technology has gone viral since the chatbot ChatGPT was launched late last year, or 2 years ago at this time. He goes on, there's more to this article, but it's just the guy that's, been working at AI for 45 some odd years now, who was working for the granddaddy of them all, Google. He's like, yo, this is past the point of, what he even saw is feasibly possible within the next 40 to 50 years. It's like, we're already here. The other wild thing that kind of goes into this is, like the stuff that we get to use on a day in and day out basis, like, ChatGPT, Dolly, Midjourney, all these tools, that's what's available to the public. What's not yet, like what's currently in development that we don't know about yet? That's what's wild.
So you actually, and like you kind of brought this up, like when we were talking about, just like we're already past the point of AI potentially, developing the emotional side of things. And since you brought up that, as far as like what we have access to versus what, government entities or even companies may have access to, big corporate conglomerates have access to. Do you think AI, and I could be completely wrong, but I've seen our government do crazier. I feel like I've seen our government do crazier things, but do you think AI will eventually get integrated into our Department of Defense systems? And if it's not already, but to a point where eventually, because at some point AI starts thinking for itself. Because I remember them saying after ChatGPT launched, no one does anything with it anymore. You have like one person monitoring it, and that's it. But it's it self survives on its own. Like it does its own thing now. Nobody does anything with it. It's already got everything it's needed, and so now it just does what it's intended to do. Do you think eventually our government will get to that point where it's going to start integrating that? And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, obviously there's been this heavy talk on, obviously war, and there are current wars that are going on. But if it gets to that bad point where nuclear war comes into play, potentially, I'm not saying it will, but if it got to that point, do you think it would be AI that might have, any kind of play in that? And I'm saying that from the standpoint of just we don't know what's going to happen, but I know that when human beings try to create things that they don't understand, and I feel like our brain, with human beings only being able to access 10 to 12% of our brain power, that we can't comprehend and understand what AI will do on its own once it's self-surviving.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do know, like, the U.S. Department of Defense has been using AI for, like, over a decade. No question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, drones, the way missiles do things, stuff like that. So, like, Pandora's out of the box there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. is definitely not alone. There's other countries as well that utilize artificial intelligence for missile tracking, etc. Literally, if it can kill something, there's AI built into it.
Yeah.
It's already there. When you say, like, will it be integrated into our government? I think yes, no brainer there. However, I think when I say yes, I think it'll be the same way that you would just say, are social networks used by the government? Like, yes, but to what degree and what decisions are being made by it, I don't know. I think that could be like a hot topic issue that will eventually, have to come to pass. Is, in what ways is AI used from a decision making standpoint? I think there's enough of the public that would not be okay with that. And I think there's a lot of people that would remain selfish enough to not want to give up that power to have an algorithm make decisions whenever you can make the decision yourself and you're the one that's benefiting financially or from a position of power as, a senator, a congress member, the president, etc. I don't think people would be willing to give up that ability. I think they would use it in the same way that a student would use it to research. You could, have you ever heard the joke of how, Congress members of the House, how they vote on bills that they don't even read? Or if they do read it, they themselves are not reading it. It's their team of interns that read it and then basically give them the Spark Notes version of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I could see like a large language learning model do that. Like ChatGPT could quickly analyze a document, spit out the top 10 things you need to know, and based on those top 10 things, you either vote yay or nay for it. I could totally see that. I'm sure you could do that today if you wanted to. You could upload a PDF, have it analyze it, and spit back you an answer in 10 seconds, like no question.
Now, do you think that will and again, I could be totally all like wrong here, but do you think that will impact decisions on how they decide to lead our country in the next 20 to 30 years? And that's just, giving it just like the bare minimum, but like kind of like what you said with like, uploading the documents, the AI would analyze it, spit out the top 10 things. Well, what if the top 10 things, what if it's just not the top 10 things that they need to know? What if there's something else that goes with, a few of those things that they would have to know? Like they would obviously have to set up the algorithm for it to do so, but with just how the decision making with our government has gone already, and that just being more aware of how it's been going in the past, 4 to 8 years, the fact that people, giving that much like the power they've already got, but then giving them the ability to be like, okay, well, we're not going to read a bill, we're not going to trust our interns to do it, we're going to let AI do it, could be a good thing, yes, but it really just depends on what the bill is too. I feel like they would have to take a lot of that into consideration as to like how they would have to weigh those 10 things that AI, like, ChatGPT or whatever AI source that they use or whatever is developed by that would spit out to them, essentially.
Yeah. So I think like two things with that. The first one being, this is where, I don't know if you've ever heard the term prompt engineering. That's one of the jobs of the future that already exists today, but to be an engineer of the prompts of how you interact with these things. So an easy example of engineering a prompt would be whenever you talk with ChatGPT, you ask it to do things in a certain way because you want a certain outcome. So you have to be aware of, okay, what are the limitations or the capabilities of the platform you're interacting with? Same way when you Google something. When you Google something, you're using certain words that you're actually looking for to whether you want to research it or get an answer on how to do something. You may not type out, like if you need to replace an air filter, you're probably going to Google how to replace air filter and then whatever that, device, car, house, whatever that is, right? You're not going to say like, how do I find air? Like you're not going to talk to it the way you would talk to me about it, You're going to truncate that and make it very short and specific.
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely like a very prominent thing, and it kind of really it gets you thinking, because it's just like we as a people are developing this, and it's like it's already becoming a lot more than what anyone could have anticipated that it would become, and this is, and even though this has been in development or been happening for the like I said, almost a century, it's kind of mind-boggling how far it's actually come, and just what people are utilizing it for, and what it's like, and who knows, it might create more jobs in the future, like you never know, and like you could be like, create me 50 new jobs for this type of economy, and it would spit out 50 new jobs of new people. Like what it could definitely be beneficial to use, but it's just kind of just navigating those waters in a way that it doesn't get out of hand, or in the wrong hands, I should say.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel threatened by it?
Honestly, no. And it's funny you ask that, because I've had conversations like this with plenty of people, because we actually did I did three classes. One was like a seminar kind of thing. But I did a class on AI, like this person was kind of talking about it and everything like that. And we got to talking about if it would actually replace the jobs of realtors, because people were like, well, then I could just get on this website, say I want to buy this house. AI would take care of all the contract stuff. You pay a small fee and then you're done, kind of. And there's a lot more to it than that, but that's just the gist of it. I don't think it'll actually replace realtors because there's still that face-to-face interaction that people would miss, I feel. And then again, kind of go back to uh like movie variations. I mean, I'm gonna go Disney on people, but that movie Wall-E, like the world ends up in just a chaotic, trash-filled landfill, and people are on the ship, and all they do is they just sit on these hover chairs all day, and they're just distracted by what AI or whatever the technology is doing for it. Now, I don't think as a population we'll get to that, but I mean, obviously we experienced COVID. We know what COVID did to a lot of people. A lot of people now just really don't. They're happy to be socializing again, but a lot of people would rather not socialize anymore. And that's just how it's becoming. But I don't think for my job specifically, I don't think it'll replace realtors. I don't think it'll replace anything with real estate, if anything at all. Especially for someone like for us in our field, it is definitely a tool, you know. And just kind of an example, not saying I do this all the time for those of you who are listening out there, but if I have a listing, I could get on ChatGPT and I could say, generate me a remarks tab for my real estate listing, and then give it details about the home and put say incorporate these words into it, and it'll spit me out a paragraph like that I will put on my listing for when realtors get on there and look at it. They're like, oh wow, like that's awesome, because they see the remarks that I put, but I didn't obviously do that. Now, I'm not saying I'll just copy and paste it all the way, but I do get on there and move it around, mix it around, stuff like that. But for the most part, though, ChatGPT will do a lot of that for me. But when it comes to just looking up general information about the property, I go do that stuff myself. Like, I'm not gonna be like, give me all the information on this property in this area, because it won't give you all the information of it, because it might not have the information for it. So
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing that I don't think I kind of meant to bring up earlier was how we're not going to be able to avoid this wave that's coming. And what I mean by that is you have what's called Microsoft Copilot and Google Duet. And those two platforms or tools, with Microsoft Copilot, you're basically going to have ChatGPT, or the idea of it. Really not ChatGPT. You're going to have the back end of OpenAI built into every single Windows PC. They're already starting to roll that out. I don't know if you've updated a PC recently and have seen where they advertise it, but it'll be there. So you'll be able to use it alongside your Excel documents, your Word documents. It'll search your computer and do stuff on your computer for you, things like that. On the Google side, in the Google Workspace or the Google Office suite, you'll have Google Duet. And so, a very easy example would be, if you're not familiar with the Google Sheets functions or formulas, you just talk to it, tell it what you want to do, and it'll basically write the formula or the function for you. Or if you have to create a Google Slides document, it can do the research, it can put the text on the page or on the slide, it can generate an image for you, it can cite its sources, things like that. That's a very surface level, concepts of what you could use it for. But these tools are going to start to be built into literally any time you use a computing device, or a personal computer of some kind, it's going to be there.
yeah.
So it's kind of like you have to, it's almost like when cell phones came out. Some people held off for a little bit, but now everyone's got one.
And that's the thing. And just to kind of put that in perspective, it's just you have to, like what we talked about earlier, you have to adapt to it and find ways to utilize it for your daily life or not. And it's not even just necessarily using stuff like that, but I mean, you have your Alexas, you have all these different, your Ring doorbells, you have all this different stuff that's just technology based that eventually is going to be AI integrated if it's not already, and I mean, at this point, Alexa pretty much is, because you can ask Alexa anything and it'll tell you, it'll give you the answer to it. And just to kind of put some things in perspective for people, these are the top 18. Now, these are just 18 AI platforms that you can utilize. I don't know what all of these do, but at least, a couple of them I do. But you have Google AI platform, TensorFlow, Microsoft Azure, Rainbird, Infosys Nia, Wipro Homes, Dialogflow, Premonition, Ayasti, MindMeld, Maya, Kai, Vital AI, Wit, Receptivity, Watson Studio, Luminata, Inferred, and these are just the top 18 AI platforms that you can utilize.
Yeah.
And there's more out there that you can integrate with, your data. Like even what is it? There's an AI bot that you can actually integrate with your email. I can't remember the exact name of it, but you can actually have it to where it's like if you're busy, it'll send out responses to the people that you've been emailing or talking with. If you're not able to get back to your computer, you can actually set up the different responses to send to those people. And so it's just if you either utilize it and use it as a tool, or you don't use it and you're going to fall way behind depending on what your career field is. And now your career path may not necessarily be anything that would utilize AI, and that's cool. But, at some point you may have to eventually use it in your daily life. You never know.
I'm even willing to go out and say everyone will interact with it in their professional workplace. Doesn't really matter what. I'm trying to think honestly of any profession that would warrant not interacting with it. I think every profession, you could almost, let me think this through before I say this, but I think you could even say, as of today, almost every single profession interacts with artificial intelligence in some way or form to do their day-to-day tasks. They may not realize they're interacting with it, but they are. Everything from the farmer out in the country to the prison guard. Like, everyone interacts with it in some way or form. They just may not realize it.
Can you, and I kind of want you to, and if you're able to, can you elaborate on the farmer? Because I think I have one profession. It's one that me and you know very well because we used to do it together. But
yeah,
wait, like
that
restaurant
got replaced. That one already got replaced by AI, technically.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the videos of like the automated bartenders in Vegas?
Yeah.
Those definitely already exist. But with the farmer, like John Deere is pretty heavy into artificial intelligence. John Deere, Scott's Miracle Grow, like all those companies, you can use AI to help determine the viability of a certain crop yields based on the weather patterns, based on the soil structure. The tractor itself has AI built into it. The harvesting mechanisms have AI built into it. I'm trying to think what else specifically, but
no. I mean, that's good because, and this just goes to show you how much that I actually, don't really realize in certain professions how much AI is utilized and how much it's not utilized because I didn't know that farmers relied on AI and those aspects of it. And it can go like I guess it really can span to the far reaches of the corners of the earth and everywhere in between. But it really is mind-boggling. But it's how you utilize it, I think, will be the turning point in that. But also too, just to kind of touch base on, I think you mentioned it earlier, but with how is AI going to be our downfall? Like, is AI intelligence going to be like, and there's plenty of other things too out there that could be our downfall. I mean, global warming, the half a dozen meteors that they said are going to hit our planet in the last like 10 years. Like, there's so many things that they said is going to be our downfall in for the world. And then obviously from a religious standpoint, I mean, obviously you have, all that, Jesus coming back and things like that, but there's just many different things. But if AI is our downfall, what do you think would cause AI to be our downfall?
That's so funny you say that. So I'm texting you an image right now, so you can look at your phone. I'll put it up on the screen when I edit this video. It basically explains exactly what you just asked about, like the downfall of humanity. Theoretically, I think the photo just went through to you. But yeah. I'll throw the photo up on the screen right now. But basically, it starts in the top left. It's a little cartoon graphic, and it says the circle of AI life. And it starts off with humanity researches AI, and then humanity perfects AI, and then AI perfects itself. AI enslaves humanity. Solar flare disables AI. Humanity worships sun god.
We could definitely have another episode on just this alone because this right here seems like the circle of life in a way. Like, and again, like, I mean, you obviously have history the way you had history because, like, I mean, we could definitely talk about this too, but it's just like you had the dinosaurs, or, if dinosaurs did exist, a lot of people say they did, and a lot of people said they did.
That's a wild theory, though, isn't it? Not going down that rabbit hole, but like, it's a wild theory.
That could be a topic, 100%. But it's just funny because like I didn't really think of it like this because when I was looking at it, I was like, that's like history's resetting itself. And because yeah, and there's been aspects in history where it's like, do you like I don't want to say like, do you think parts of history have reset themselves, but we've already been so advanced that we knew how to get back to where we were at. But I mean, what came before us in that aspect? I mean, that could technically be a conversation. That could have been a conversation for last week's, but it's like, what came before us then? If that's the case, like, were there actually cavemen, or was there actually something before dinosaurs, and everything just got reset, and then that was just us working our way back up to this point, only to possibly get reset again?
There's a lot of smart people out there that think humanity is just the biological meat bags that are setting up AI. Like, we are literally purposed with creating AI, and then AI is the next thing. Like, think like humanity is pointless at that point because it's like the next evolution.
Yeah.
We are just the programmers creating the next thing.
So what would be the point of creating AI? I mean, I say what would be the point in creating the AI, then, but what would be the point in creating the AI if we're not, if then eventually we're not going to be here? And is just AI going to just start creating things itself, or like what's
That's a good
and,
question.
and there's games, there's movies that talk about all this kind of stuff, but it's like that's actually very interesting. Like that alone could be a topic because where we are at in history right now. I mean, if you really think about history, we are so far ahead of where we first were, of just a civilization, like just the Western days, the colonization days, the back in the days where the British and all that, like just, the wars and everything. Like there's so much stuff that has happened that,
That wasn't even that long ago, too, if you think about it.
and,
That was just a few hundred years ago.
well, yeah, and that's what's crazy because it's like it feels like we've come so far, but to just know that it could all just be gone just like that, it just, and we would never see, see anything ever again. But that's actually very interesting that you sent that picture.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there's been times when like sun flares have taken most technology offline on the planet. Man, I'm going blank on what that. Hang on, let me research this in real time because I'm trying to remember. What was it? Oh, the Carrington event. Carrington event. The Carrington event. There's a solar flare that hit. It was North America and parts of Europe in 1859. And basically it took the telegraph offline. Like these happen in very small doses. We're always due for like the next big one. It's something where you really wouldn't see it, but then all of a sudden anything that has like silicon or electricity running through it, it would take it offline. So like you wouldn't be able to start your car, electric grid would be down, your phone wouldn't work, your fridge would stop working, things like that. It happened. It happened in the 1800s, and we have legit record of it. And we saw how parts of the U.S. reacted to it, parts of Europe reacted to it. But at the time, it wasn't as crazy as it would be today, just because we're much more reliant on electricity than we ever probably have been ever in the history of humanity, at least of what we're aware of.
Yeah.
Just think about how many things you interact with, like literally right now, that use electricity. Think about how many things are directly touching your body that require electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I
All
mean,
that
pretty
would
much.
be useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and this could definitely be a topic for another time, but if that was to happen, let's just say, right now everything that's happening is happening, and something like this actually happens. I mean, the time frame, and I brought this up before too, but the time frame that it would take to actually bring all that back online is I think they said 6 months, minimum 6 months to bring all that back up.
Well,
Like I
it's the
said,
grid. In this case,
yeah,
you have to like rebuild everything.
yep,
Like it wouldn't just be like your car would be a brick at that point. So what do you do with all those cars? How do you make all these new cars? Like you're gonna have to wait if you'll ever get one again. Like,
and yeah, that's not something I would be willing to do. Like I'd be walking 500 miles just to show at home,
well, like your power drill wouldn't work. anything with a bad, like anything that has an electric current running through it would be unusable.
That is indeed that's indeed a scary concept. And the thing is like, obviously there have been talks, I think, the past like 2 years that solar flares have been kind of acting up again, like things have been actually happening. Not like that where it's actually coming here yet, but we've actually had things that people have been monitoring and talking about solar flares that have been kind of coming back up again and being more prominent and stuff like that. So I guess they've just been kind of on the lookout for that. But you really never know.
You really don't know. Yeah, no, solar flares do happen quite frequently. It's just at what scale in terms of actually, interacting with our atmosphere, etc. I'm not a meteorologist. What do I know?
Right.
But yeah. So I don't know. Where do we... Let's end on a high note, and rather than being doom and gloom. As of recording this, it was the NBA All-Star Game weekend, I believe. And so this past week, the NBA actually talked about their initiatives with AI. Did you happen to see when the NBA kind of had their little presser?
I didn't get to see all of it, but I did see some articles that popped up on Facebook from it. But like they kind of gave like little snippets, but I didn't get a whole lot of chance to really go through it.
Yeah, so basically what they're going to be able to do here, well, they already are able to do it. What they're going to allow fans to be able to interact with is like a basketball game. They'll be able to take like the video feed of that and then basically have a CGI version of that created in the art style of your choosing. So think about how you would watch like Spider-Man Into the Universe, like Into the
Spider-Verse, yeah,
that whole thing. Like the vast amounts of art styles you see in that movie. Now imagine if you're watching in real time an NBA basketball game, but it's being presented to you in that style.
Okay.
It has special effects when there's like a dunk or a 3-pointer, things like that.
That would actually be pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Same with any kind of sport, really. That'd actually be pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah. So they're going to start having that. And then if you want to take it to the next level with the whole Apple Vision Pro, or just really probably any headset that has augmented reality in the future, they have it where you can watch the game on like a tabletop. So you'll be watching like a 3-dimensional version of the game, but like on your kitchen table.
Now, and I guess we can kind of go even further, but I mean, obviously video games, I mean, the metaverse and gaming and stuff like that. Do you think gaming would ever get to, have you seen that movie Ready Player One? It's based on a book.
I'm aware of the storyline there.
It's on like 3 different streaming platforms. It's on Netflix, I think it's on Hulu, and it's on HBO. If you ever get a chance to watch it, honestly, next to like Marvel movies, like hands down, probably my favorite movie of all time. Like and I have the books. I read the first book, but I had never read the second one, but I want to start from scratch and read them again. But essentially, it's exactly what stuff like that would happen. So it's like you could watch the game in full, but how this works is you it's called the Oasis, and you put this headset on and you're actually a character in there, like in normal games. And you can gain coins, like you can gain credits, and it's not just like one game, like it's different universes. Like I'm not even kidding. If anyone's listening, you haven't seen that movie, watch it, and it will actually blow your mind. And if you get a chance to read the books, I mean, the books are just as good. Like I said, I haven't read the second one yet, but it's actually pretty cool how they set the game, like the world of those games up and what you can do and what you can't do. But I think with like the sports aspect of that, I think we're heading in that direction. And I'll be honest, like I would be okay with something like that, but it does take away from the, like the person to person interactions. But I just think it's kind of cool just how AI is doing things like this in this aspect. And it's not just utilized for just, what you see in your daily workflow, but it can be utilized in so many different ways. And even though we're way ahead of where they think that we're at, I feel like we're just barely scraping the surface of what AI can actually do based on what they're showcasing us today.
Yeah. So on the record, let's end with this. What year do you think it will be when the first AI generated movie wins an Oscar?
I think it'll be within 3 years, 3 to 4 years. 3 to 4 years. At the very latest, 2030. So about 6 years from now, then at the very latest. But I feel like it's possible, and I say that because movies today, you don't really see a lot of unique movies. Almost every movie now that they come out with, they end up making a second, a third, a fourth, or if you're Fast and the Furious, you make 10 of them. Um, and I'm not dogging Fast and the Furious. It's just like I lost interest after like the fifth one. I was like,
It's a fun watch. You just turn your brain off for an hour and a half.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for Marvel movies, I mean, I could watch Marvel movies all day because at least with that, I mean, it is mostly something. It's pretty much something different almost every single movie because of just how large that universe is versus some of the other ones. So it's like if they keep coming out with movies that are like repeats of like the previous movie, I think AI has a strong chance to win. Like pretty in the near future.
I'll go on the record. I'll say 2027. I
You
think
think
it might be
2020?
sooner, but I think it'll be doable. But the one thing I could see maybe being a plot twist in this prediction is if the Academy allows AI generated movies to be eligible for an Oscar. I think that would.
They may have their own and sorry to interrupt, but they may have their own category,
That's a good point. Yeah.
best AI. That would then because I'm not, and I feel like that's how some of the ways they would get around that. But it's like have your own category, best AI generated movie.
No, that's a good point because it'd be similar to how was it National Geographic? I think they do like the photo of the year, and it's always some wild like nature photograph. You would have the AI version of that. You'd have like the image of the year, different categories, video of the year, things like
Yeah.
that. So very interesting. But I guess there's really only time will tell. Is there anything you want to leave off with, or
Kind of just what I kind of one of the things I've said this entire time is just like if you haven't used AI, you know, do your research and think of draw up your own conclusion of it. But if you work in a specific field or you have any way of incorporating it into your daily life, in certain cases I would recommend it. Like I mean it can make your life easier, but just just go into it with an open mind. Essentially, you never know what it's gonna. Don't be left behind, and you never know what's gonna happen. So just just go into it.